This is the online financial school. As usual, we are developing financial skills on this cost-effective platform. This series of lectures is on life assurance, and this particular lecture deals with the time value of money. So we are looking at the time value of money for cash flows, the present value of a series of cash flows, the accumulation of a series of cash flows, understanding the time value of money over many years for a lot of payments. The question that we need to answer is, if we put $100 in a bank every year at 10%, how much money will we have after 2 years, after 5 years, after 10 years? And to answer that question, we start off by looking at the case of 2 years. So after 2 years, I have two tranches of money. I have $100, which has been there for 2 years and therefore has earned 2 years worth of interest. And I have another $100, which has been there for 1 year and therefore has earned 1 year's worth of interest. So if we are looking to find the value, the accumulated value of $100 over 1 year, we add the two. So we are looking to find the accumulated value of $100 over 2 years. We take the two figures that I have just described. So after 2 years, I repeat again, I have two tranches of money which has been there. The first one has been there for 2 years. The second one has been there for 1 year. So I add those two to get the accumulated value of $100 over 2 years. Now, that is a very, very important result, because what it gives us is now the ability to extend the same logic to 5 years. So if we are looking at 5 years, we are now saying we have $100, which has been there for 5 years, which has earned 5 years worth of interest. We have another $100, which has been there for 4 years, which has earned 4 years worth of interest. And we have another $100, which has been there for 3 years, which has therefore earned 3 years worth of interest. And we have another $100, which has been there for 2 years, which has earned 2 years worth of interest. And another $100, which has been there for 1 year and has 1 year's worth of interest. So you then accumulate that amount, the total of the 5 tranches of money, to get the accumulation of $100 over 5 years at 10%. Now, we can get a bit more scientific by defining functions that make the calculation easier. So in this case, we define S of n, which is 1 plus the interest rate raised to the power of n. I repeat, 1 plus the interest rate, all of that raised to the power of n. So, if we want to talk in a different language, we are now saying S of n is the accumulation of $1 over a period of n years. In other words, S of n is the accumulated value of $1 invested for n years. What that means is that once we start now defining the accumulation of money, we then look at 2 years and we say, for 2 years, the value of $100 invested for 2 years, after 2 years, is equal to S of 1 plus S of 2, all that added together multiplied by $100. If we go to 5 years, we are looking at adding again S1 plus S2 plus S3 plus S4 plus S5. All of that added together multiplied by $100 would give us the present value, the accumulated value of $100 after 5 years. In other words, we are accumulating $100 over 5 years using the function S. There is an even neater way of looking at it. And in order to look at it, we can define a function A of n, the accumulation of $1 over a period n, which is equal to S1 plus S2 plus S3 plus S4 up to Sn. So coming back to that function, we then find that that function, when added together, will be equal to 1 plus the interest rate, all of that raised to the power of n, minus 1, all of that divided by interest. In other words, we are calculating figures using that formula. And when we calculate those figures, for 5 years, $100 would accumulate to $610.51. For 10 years, $100 will accumulate to $1,593.74. For 20 years, $100 would accumulate to $5,727.50. Please satisfy yourself that you can calculate these figures. It is very, very important for you to understand what is happening. Moving on, we can invert that question. If I wanted instead to get $100 at the end of every year for the next 5 years, how much should I invest at 10% in a bank? If I wanted to get $100 at the end of every year for the next 10 years, how much should I invest with a bank? That's the question that we have to answer. If I wanted $100 a month for the next 20 years, $100 a year for the next 20 years, how much should I invest? So again, we will take a slight shortcut in this case because we have kind of introduced the accumulating function. So we will introduce the discounting function V of n. which is equal to 1 plus the interest rate, all of that raised to the power of minus n. 1 plus the interest rate, all of that raised to the power of minus n. Now, the magic starts. So, if we define the discounted value of a series of cash flows, D of n, which is equal to V1 plus V2 plus V3 plus V4. What this is saying is that D of n is the discounted value of payments of $1 to be made over the next n years. That's quite fundamental. D of n is the present value of n payments that are going to be made one at a time over the next n years. So, if we want to find the present value of any series of payments, we just multiply by dn. So $100 over n years is $100 times dn. Now, dn can be simplified. I know you think this is complicating it. And dn would be equal to 1 minus, now you need to hold bracket, 1 plus the interest raised to the power of minus n. So it's 1 minus bracket 1 plus interest bracket raised to the power of minus n. All of that in brackets divided by the interest rate. It looks like a very complicated formula, but it's actually a very simple formula. D of n can be represented in a different way as 1 over the interest minus V of n over the interest. Now, by that formula, we find that D of 5 is equal to $3.79. D of 10 is equal to $6.14. D of 20 is equal to $8.51. So, coming back and re-evaluating, we can use those results to now engage in conversation. And that conversation is now saying, if I invest $379 at 10%, I can be paid an annuity of $100 for the next 5 years. If I invest $614, I can be paid an annuity of $100 for the next 10 years. If I invest $851, I can get an annuity of $100 over 20 years. So the gist of this whole story, what this story is now saying to us, is that the present value of $100 over 5 years is $379. Over 10 years is $614. Over 20 years is $800.